Welcome to Getting Started with French. I'm William E. Linney, a co-author of Getting Started with French, and I'm here today with my co-author, Brandon Simpson.
Hello.
And also, we have with us today a special guest, Francois, who is from France.
Bonjour.
And we're especially glad to have Francois here with us today because as a native speaker, Francois can tell us all kinds of insights about the language that we otherwise would not be able to know about. So now that we've all been introduced, let's jump on into the material here in Lesson 1. When we first started writing this book, both Brandon and I thought it would be a good idea to start out by talking about pronunciation just in a general sense, the challenges that an English speaker might face when beginning to study French. And what I'm thinking of specifically here is nasal vowels.
The most difficult part of French pronunciation is distinguishing all the little vowel sounds from one another because they are so subtle and don't even exist in English that we have to really practice to get them right.
One example that comes to mind would be the rounded vowels, that is, vowels that require lips to be in a rounded shape. What would be an example of a rounded vowel?
Tu. That's one of the first ones you would probably learn.
So the word tu means you. So Francois, give us a truly authentic pronunciation for the word tu.
Tu. So the vowel U is said U in French.
Even as I'm sitting here listening to you say that, I can tell that your lips are rounded. And as a sound to make, that's something very unusual for us as English speakers.
Yes. Another more difficult one would be the word for sister. Sœur.
Sœur. It is a sœur.
Okay, let me see if I can copy you, Francois. Sœur.
Yes, it's a little more pronounced, I don't know, sœur. It's built with a O and E. How do you call that?
Well, as far as their written form, that's called a ligature. Two vowels that work together to make one sound is called a diphthong in spoken speech.
So you have sœur, cœur.
That's the French word for heart.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and wrap up lesson number 1. But before we finish the conversation completely, there is one last thing I'd like to ask Francois, and that is, Francois, have you noticed from English speakers who are trying to speak French, are there any common mistakes that you hear them make when they try to speak French?
Well, one which is very known, but it's on both sides, is a R that you do not pronounce, and we pronounce with the throat.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because in a few lessons we have an entire lesson devoted to that very sound. So we're going to be coming back to that. And also you mentioned something about nasal vowels too, didn't you?
We have a series of sound called nasals with the nose, like on, un. And these ones are very different for us, and maybe for an English guy it is almost the same. Strangely, you don't use it.
Okay, great. Well, that's it for lesson 1. Stick with us, and we're going to have even more about the specifics of French pronunciation coming up over the next few lessons.